إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So in the last lesson that we had, we're reaching the end now of the creed of Imam At-Tahawi rahimahullah, and at the end of this creed he says basically that this is our religion, this is our belief openly and inwardly, and we free ourselves from everyone who opposes that which we have mentioned, meaning in this creed. And so in summarizing at the end, he says, وَدِينُ اللَّهِ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاءِ وَاحِدٌ, that the religion of Allah upon the earth and in the heaven is one. And وَهُوَ دِينُ الْإِسْلَامِ, it is Islam. He mentions the verses, إِنَّ الدِّينَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ الْإِسْلَامِ, verily the religion with Allah is Islam. And likewise, وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا, I am pleased with Islam for you as a religion. And so this passage, we looked at this passage in the previous lesson and we took some benefits. And from the benefits that we completed in the previous lesson was that when we speak of Islam, there's Islam which is general, al-Islam al-Am, and there's Islam which is specific. So when we say Islam and the religion of all of the prophets and messengers was Islam, then here we are speaking about al-Islam al-Am. And this refers to the general message of Tawheed and Iman and belief in paradise, hellfire, the affairs of the unseen, the grave. So all of those things which pertain to belief and which are the foundation, then this is al-Islam al-Am. And as for when we speak about al-Islam al-Khas, then here we are speaking specifically about the Islam of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sharia which he brought, meaning all of the ahkam, the rulings, the laws, and so on and so forth. And so Islam, therefore, when we speak of Islam, then we need to be clear that there's an Islam which is general, and it is a message of all of the prophets. It is to submit to Allah upon Tawheed and to worship Him alone and to obey His messenger, whichever messenger it is, and to free oneself from shirk and its people. This is Islam in general. It's the same between all of the prophets and messengers. And then each messenger, each prophet had a law, and so that law now is specific to each prophet, each messenger, whichever time or era that he came in. So when we say Islam as in the Islam that we mean, this only refers to the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it combines between the foundation, the usul of the religion, and likewise the Sharia, which the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which he brought, which is for all times and all places after his messengership. So that was the point that we made, the first benefit that we took from that statement about the Deen of Allah. So we'll continue then from where we left off, and this is the start of our lesson today. So the second issue, وَدِينُ اللَّهِ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاءِ وَاحِدٌ, that the Deen of Allah in the earth and the heaven is one. So sometimes we hear this statement, you probably hear this statement where they say the heavenly religions. The heavenly religions, Al-Ad-Deen As-Samawiyyah. And they say sometimes that there are three heavenly religions. There's Judaism, there is Christianity, and there is Islam. And all of this is false, and this is incorrect, because we are implying by this that Allah revealed Christianity, or that Allah revealed Judaism, and Allah revealed Islam. All of this is incorrect. As At-Tahawi says, وَدِينُ اللَّهِ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاءِ وَاحِدٌ. وَدِينُ اللَّهِ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاءِ وَاحِدٌ. There's only one religion, and that is Islam. So whatever Allah revealed to Musa alayhi salam and to Isa alayhi salam and to the prophets before them, that was Islam. And as per the hadith, as per the verse that Tahawi mentions, Inna Ad-Deen inda Allahi al-Islam, very clear that the religion with Allah, which is, as we explained, to submit oneself to Allah in Tawheed, upon Tawheed, and to obey Him, to comply with Him in obedience, and to free himself from shirk. So this, what I've explained, these three things that the scholars explain, that Islam is al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, wal-inqiyad lahu bit-ta'ah, wal-khulus min ash-shirk wa ahlihi. These three things. To submit to Allah upon tawheed, and to comply to His obedience, and to free oneself from shirk and its people. So every single prophet, every single messenger, that is the essence of Islam. So that is what Allah revealed to every prophet, to every messenger. And so, and this is the deen that came from the heaven, as in Allah revealed it by way of books and by sending angel Jibreel alayhi salam with revelation to the messengers. And this is the deen that He is pleased with, as we also see in that verse at the beginning of Surah Al-Ma'idah, وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. I'm pleased with you as Islam for you as your religion. So this is clearly a mistake. Anyone who says Al-Adyan, As-Samawiyyah, Al-Thalatha, the three heavenly revealed religions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, all of this is incorrect. There is only one revealed religion, and that is Islam. And again, when we use the word Islam, it's upon the previous point that we mentioned. There's Islam Am and there is Islam which is Khas. Now, it is possible for us to say that we can say, instead of saying the deen, we can say that, for example, the Sharia of Isa alayhi salam, the legislation that Isa alayhi salam that he brought, you could say that that is Christianity. And the legislation that Musa alayhi salam that he brought, you could say that that is al-Yahudiyyah. It is what the Jews follow, or what the Christians follow. You could say that when you're making a reference to the actual law that they follow. But you cannot say that these are heavenly revealed religions, because Judaism and Christianity, these are altered religions. It is not what Allah revealed. Judaism, what was revealed to Musa alayhi salam, roughly in that era, about 3,500 years ago, around 1500 BC, that was Islam. And that was to worship Allah alone, to obey His law, and to avoid idolatry, polytheism, shirk, and the gods, the deities which the nations had in that time. But what we call Judaism is something that developed well afterwards, well over 1,000 years afterwards. And those people who began to write the Torah and they began to alter the Torah, they changed the deen of Musa alayhi salam from what it was, and they changed it into a tribal religion. A religion that's based upon the tribe now, the tribe of Judah. And it's based around land, conquering land, which is the land, they used to have a kingdom of Israel in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam, when it was, united. And then after that it divided. It was initially united, then it divided into the north and the south. And in the south was the tribe of Judah. And so when they wrote the Torah, they wrote the books of the Torah, they injected certain things into the Torah. And from them they put the idea that, this land is promised to them and they are the chosen people and, all this. And so they changed it from what it was, where they were supposed to worship Allah alone, obey the law, and then call the people to this. And then they made it into a tribal religion. And then they invented things into the law. And also they picked up from the other nations, from the Persians, from the Babylonians, from the Egyptians, these things which from history, they incorporated those because they were living amongst these people at certain times in their history. So all of that, al-Yahudiyyah, is not Islam. It's not the deen of Musa alayhi salam. And likewise with Christianity, what Allah Azza wa Jal He revealed to Isa alayhi salam, it was just simply to confirm the message of Musa alayhi salam, Tawheed, and observe the law. And so what the Nasara, those who call themselves Nasara, what they did is there were actually two groups. One group who were believers in Isa alayhi salam, they stuck to his teachings. They were from the Bani Israel and who stuck to his teachings. And then those who took the message of Isa alayhi salam and they took it to the pagans of Europe. So they took it to Rome, they took it to Greece. And in these nations they already had beliefs of, human gods walking upon the earth. Zeus, Apollo, right? All of these Greek gods, and likewise the Roman gods, the worship of the sun, and all of the deities that they had. So they took that message of Isa alayhi salam, and then they represented Isa alayhi salam in a manner that those pagans could they already knew, and that they could understand and accept. And so this then became what they call Christianity today. And at the same time, they abolished the law. They said you don't need to stick to, the law. You don't need to have any righteous actions. All you need to believe is to believe that Jesus is God and He died for your sins. And this idea, this basic idea is already found amongst the Greeks and Romans, this idea of, sacrifice and redemption and things like that. So it is incorrect to say the three heavenly revealed religions. Or they also say the three Abrahamic faiths. Right? The three Abrahamic faiths, that they come from Abraham. This is kadhib. You see ignorant Muslims saying this as well. And it's also, this is also the same thing said by Christians and by many of the Jews in order to validate their religion. They say, yes, there are three heavenly revealed religions. There's Christianity, there's Judaism, there's Islam. And what they mean by this is they say, well, you practice what you practice, you have the truth, and we have the truth, and they have the truth. We're all Abrahamic faiths, and they're brethren in faith. This is batil. This is not true. Because what they are upon is Ad-Deen mubaddal. It is an altered religion. It is a Deen mansukh. It is an abrogated religion. And it will not, anyone who worships Allah by that religion, it will not be accepted from him. Because it is abrogated by the sending of the Quran and the sending of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this then, we do not have any doubt that this is batil. It opposes the text of the Quran and the Sunnah, and likewise ijma', which is that Allah Azza wa Jal does not accept anything except Islam. And He is not pleased with anything except Islam. And He says very clearly, in fact, in another verse, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Whoever desires a deen other than the deen of Islam, other than Islam, it will never be accepted from him, and he will be in the hereafter amongst the losers. Surah Al Imran, verse number 85. And likewise in another verse in Surah Al-Hajj, وَهُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ وَفِي هَذَا. He is the one who named you Muslims before this and here in this as well. So this means that those who were the previous prophets, previous messengers, they were called Muslims. This was their name. They called themselves as Muslims. They referred to themselves as Muslims. So this now then is the second point. The second point is that there is no such thing as the heavenly revealed religions, or the three heavenly revealed religions. There's only one deen, and it is Islam. And that Islam, as per the first point, is Islam Am, which is common between all the prophets and messengers, and there's Islam Khas, which is the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, along with all of its laws and ahkam and everything else. This brings us to the third point and the third benefit now, and this relates to the meaning of the word deen, because At-Tahawi said, وَدِينُ اللَّهِ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاءِ وَاحِدٍ. Deen. And this word deen, and it's important that we understand this, the word deen comes from the word dana yadino. Dana yadino. This is the verb, dana yadino. And this verb, what it means is when you adhere to something, Iltizam, when you make iltizam, when you hold fast to something, and when it becomes something that is a habit, you habitually stick to something, this now becomes a deen. And this is why we have another word, it's called a daydan. Daydan, where you say daydanahu kada, it is from his habit to do such and such. It's his preoccupation to do such and such. And all of this then indicates the meaning of the word deen. It is something to which a person adheres to, it's a habit for him, and that's why the Shaykh mentions a verse here from with respect to the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. كَذَلِكَ كِدْنَا لِيُوسُف مَا كَانَ لِيَأْخُذَ أَخَاهُ فِي دِينِ الْمَلِكِ. This is speaking about when Yusuf alayhi salam was in Egypt, and the king of Egypt, this is when he made his brothers to stay back because he put the vessel in the bag of one of them, and he forced them to stay back whilst the others went to bring their father. But he mentions here ما كان ليأخذ أخاه في دين الملك إلا أن يشاء الله. So the word here, Deen al-Malik, refers to the deen of the king of Egypt, and refers to whatever laws and whatever things they were accustomed to and that they were ruling by. So the point being from this is that when we use the word deen, it is anything that a person adheres to of habits, customs, laws, beliefs, values, things like that, everything they hold on to, and on the basis of which they behave. This is the meaning of the word deen. And in fact, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he mentions in one place as well that a deen is whatever a person believes, and then on top of that he determines his action on the basis of that, right? So this really means that every person has a deen. No person is without a deen. That's why when we use the word religion, it sometimes conveys the wrong meaning in English, the way that the word religion is understood. Because the word religion, when you use the word religion, it's usually contrasted with, for example, science and empirical knowledge. It's as if religion is just something that's superstition and baseless belief. And that's one of the problems, that when you speak, especially when you speak to atheists, and the word religion is used, it's not really doing justice to the word deen, which is what is used in the Quran, and with its right meaning. So the word deen simply means that whatever set of beliefs that you have, whatever set of beliefs that you are convinced are true, and then on top of those beliefs you then determine your behavior. Right? So an atheist has a deen. Everyone has a deen. Christians have a deen clearly, and the Yahud have a deen, and the mushrik has a deen, and the atheist has a deen, because at the end of the day he believes that life is meaningless, purposeless, matter is eternal, whatever variations that they believe in. And then they have different philosophies. Some of them say, they have different philosophies as to how you should live your life. So some say there's existentialism, meaning that you just live and enjoy your life, and you determine your own purpose, your own goal, and that's the truth for you. That's your truth, right? So this person actually has a deen. This is the deen, right? So this person can't come and say to you, no, I don't have a religion, because that is your religion. A religion is upon the word deen, as we've explained here. So then, based upon that, now there's another issue. Once we understand this very clearly, there's now an issue from this, which is that At-Tahawi said, Deenullahi fil ardi was sama' wahid. He said the deen of Allah. Deen of Allah. So we have to make a distinction between when we ascribe deen to Allah and to a person. Because when we say the deen of Allah, here we are speaking about the deen which He commanded, which He revealed and He commanded for mankind. This is what we mean, Deenullah. And when we're not speaking about the fa'il of the deen, the doer of the deen. We're speaking here of the one who commanded the deen. But when we speak of, for example, the deen of so-and-so, and the deen of so-and-so, and the deen of so-and-so, here now we are using the deen in terms of the fa'il of the deen, the doer of the deen, the one whose deen it is, the one who acts upon that deen, the one who holds that deen. So here we are distinguishing between the one who commands a deen, so Allah commands Islam, and He only commands Islam, as we've established, and the one who actually worships with a deen, the one who adopts a deen, and that is everybody else. So the deen of the mulhid, the atheist, the deen of the Nasara, the Christians, the deen of the Yahud, the deen of the mushrik, the deen of the Hindu, everybody else, then that is their deen. It is whatever they believe, and whatever they worship with, whatever they practice, whatever they do, all of that is their deen. So this then is the third point, and this moves us to the fourth point. In fact, before we move to the fourth point, there's just a little technical issue here, is that sometimes we use different words. We use the word deen, we use the word sharia, we use the word aqeedah, and what's the connection between all these different words? And so there are general and specific. So for example, we can say deen, we can say sharia, we can say aqeedah, right? All of them can be used to mean the same thing. And we see historically that some of the scholars, when they used to write books on belief, they used to call it ash-sharia, like Imam al-Ajurri, rahimahullah. He wrote a book and he called it ash-sharia. What did he discuss? He discussed issues of belief. And likewise, we can say, like the same point, ash-sharia, we can refer the deen as ash-sharia, and we can refer aqeedah as. So the point being that these words are synonymous, and you can use one in place of the other one. That's a little technical point that the Shaykh mentioned there. This now brings us to the next point, which again we are looking at Islam. What is Islam? And we're going to drill down now. So we said, remember at the beginning, we said that Islam al-Am, which is general for every single prophet and messenger, it is al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed. It is to submit oneself to Allah, and it is to obey Him, to comply with Him in obedience. And the third one is to free oneself from shirk and his people. We're going to focus on the first one, which is submission to Allah. This submission that we are speaking of here, this submission can be divided into three categories, and these are mentioned in the Quran. So the first one is called Islamul Wajh. Islamul Wajh. This now is who you turn to, who do you direct your face to, who do you turn to, and who do you direct worship to, who are you really turning to? Islamul Wajh. Second type is Islamul Amal. Islamul Amal. So the actions that you are doing, who are they really directed to? And the third one is Islamul Qalb. Islamul Qalb, which is the Islam of the heart. So these three, we see the first one, Islamul Wajh. What is the meaning of Islamul Wajh? It means that you do not turn to anyone else in your worship. You turn only to Allah, and you leave everyone else. And this is the meaning in those verses where you see that this phrase or this statement is used. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, Bala man aslama wajhahu. Bala man aslama wajhahu wa huwa muhsin. Allah says, but rather the one who submits his face, meaning the one who turns to Him, to Allah, whilst he is muhsin, whilst he does good. So here we see the word aslama wajhahu, who turns his face to Allah, meaning who directs himself to Allah. And likewise in another ayah, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ دِينًا مِمَّنْ أَسْلَمَ وَجْهَهُ لِلَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ. Who is better in deen? Who is better in deen than the one who submits his face to Allah whilst he is doing good, and who follows the millah, the religion of Ibrahim, who was upright? So here now we see this meaning of turning one's face, and this means turning oneself and facing oneself to Allah and worshipping only Allah. This is Islamul Wajh. The second is Islamul Amal. Islamul Amal. This now is that within the action itself, that action is sincerely for Allah. As in, you are not doing it now for showing off or for recognition or to achieve something of the world. This now is that within the action itself, you are sincerely doing it for Allah. This now is ikhlas. Right? So look at the first, what's the difference between the first two? The difference between the first two is, the first one, Islamul Wajh, is that you are not like the mushrik. Because the mushrik, he turns to, for example, other than Allah. Turns to a tree, turns to a stone, turns to an angel or to the righteous dead. Right? So he worships these things. So now his Islamul Wajh, where is he turning it to? He's turning it to other than Allah. That's the first one, Islamul Wajh. The person of Tawheed turns only to Allah. That's the first thing now. Then, in the actions that he is doing, which he's directing only to Allah instead of to others, within those actions, the action is now sincere. It is with ikhlas. Meaning that he could be worshipping Allah, like for example a person prays, he's turning to Allah. This is Islamul Wajh. But in that prayer, he's probably doing it to show off, to be seen. He lengthens his standing, lengthens his prostration. Right? Here now, this is now he's seeking other than Allah's reward. And this now is, shirk in the action. So Islamul Amal, here, this means that a person is mutakhallisan, that, he's sincere, and there's no hawa, there's no desire, there's no riya, there's no showing off, there's no other motives. It is purely and sincerely only for Allah Azza wa Jal. So this is Islamul Amal. And as for Islamul Qalb, Islam of the heart, really this is the foundation of both of these two. Right? So Islamul Wajh and Islamul Amal, Islamul Qalb lies underneath them two. It is the foundation of them two. When a person's heart completely submits only to Allah, then first of all it will turn only to Him, and secondly it will worship Him upon sincerity, make his actions with a truthful intention and seeking only the reward from Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So Islamul Qalb, anyone who turns his heart to Allah, Islamul Qalb, then he will make Islamul Wajh and he will make Islamul Amal. And that's why the believer's heart, the heart of the believer, is only attached to Allah. It's only attached to Allah. Whereas the heart of a mushrik, it is attached to other than Allah. It is attached to other than Allah. And that is why they do not have Islamul Wajh. And sometimes also it can be the case that even the heart of a believer, it can start becoming attached to other things with a type of shirk, which is the minor type of shirk. An example of that is in the hadith in which the Messenger of Allah, he said, wretched be the one who is the worshipper of the dinar, and wretched be the one who is the worshipper of the dirham, and wretched be the one who is the worshipper of the type of cloth like the silk and the velvet and things like that. Now why did he say the worshipper of the dinar and the worshipper of the dirham and the worshipper of the silk and the velvet? A person is not really worshipping those things, but his heart has become attached to those material things. And that attachment to material things, it leads a person to become distracted from Allah. And so, this now is something which affects his worship. So, this will allow us to understand the reality of this Islam. When we read, for example, in Al-Usul al-Thalatha and other basic texts, when they say, what is Islam? And Islam is al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed, the first one, wal-inqiyad lahu bit-ta'ah, wal-khulus min ash-shirki wa ahlihi. The first one, al-istislam. What is this istislam? What is this in the submission that we are making? It is Islamul Wajh and it is Islamul Amal. And underneath that, the foundation of all of that is the Islam of the qalb. the foundation, which is that of the heart. So this leads us now to so this is the third or fourth point that we've made, the fourth point. We'll move on now to the next issue, which is that At-Tahawi. So this is the deen of Islam. We finished that point now. And then At-Tahawi said that the deen of Islam is between ghulu and taqsir, between tashbih and ta'til, between jabr and qadar, and between al-aman wal-ya'as. We covered them in the previous lesson. So basically here he's explaining that Islam is in moderation. It is the middle path between all of these extremes. And he gave 4 examples, 4 topics, 4 subject areas. So the first one is that Islam is in between exaggeration and neglect. Right? So again, we discussed them in the previous lesson, so I don't want to go into them into too much detail. But al-ghulu, exaggeration. Like for example, the 3 men who came and they looked at the Messenger of Allah, they said, we can never be like him. So we need to exaggerate, we need to increase in worship. So one said, I will stay up and not go to sleep, pray all the time. The other one said, I will fast every day. And the third one said, I will shun women and never get married. And this now is the startings of ghulu, of exaggeration, right? Of extremism in the religion. And likewise, on the other hand, there is no taqsir, which is neglect, where you are neglectful and you fall short. So Islam is in between the two. Likewise, between at-tashbih and ta'til. Tashbih is to liken Allah's attributes with those of the creation. To liken Allah to His creation. To say that His hearing is like our hearing, His seeing is like our hearing, His seeing is like our seeing, and so on and so forth. And ta'til, the other extreme, is to deny and negate His names and attributes. So we are in between. We affirm His attributes, and we say that His attributes do not resemble the creation, and we cannot know what the realities are. Likewise, between al-jabr and al-qadar. Al-jabr and al-qadar. This now refers to man and his will and his choice. Is man forced to do what he does? This is what the Jabariyah say. This is Jabr. Jabr meaning force, compulsion. And this is wrong, because man is not forced to do. He has a choice, he has a will. And Allah gave him the ability to act and to choose and to think. So he clearly chooses his own actions, which is within the will of Allah. And on the other hand, so this is Jabr. On the other hand, there is Al-Qadar. And this refers to those who say that man has a power and ability outside the power of Allah. He acts completely independently. He creates his own actions, and Allah has no influence. Allah's power has no influence over this individual in what he does. This now is basically claiming that every person is a creator alongside Allah, because every person is outside of Allah's qudra, Allah's power. And this now we are falling into the religion of the Majus, the Magians, those who say there's a God of good and there's a God of evil. Allah, He only wills what is good, and He allowed His creatures to act independently, and they are the ones who do evil. Right? So this is wrong. So we believe that Allah, He created mankind, and because He created them, He is their creator and the creator of their actions. And then He gave them a will, He gave them a choice, He gave them limbs, He gave them, everything with which they can think, reflect and act. And so they choose and they do their actions, and they are responsible for their actions. But Allah has knowledge of all of that, and He created all of the mechanisms through which they act and choose and behave. So we are in between Al-Jabr and Al-Qadr. As for the fourth one, to speak about this one, Al-Aman wal-Ya'as. Al-Aman is when a person just feels secure about everything. And Al-Ya'as is when a person despairs, he loses hope. Right? So Islam is in between these two. You are neither feeling absolutely secure, nor are you someone who just despairs and loses hope. So these attributes, the last two, we'll speak about them inshallah because of the benefit in them, and there's an interesting discussion to do with that. So that which is obligatory upon a Muslim is that we should understand that we should never feel secure from the plan of Allah. Allah has a plan within His creation. And on the other side, we should never ever feel complete despair and lose hope. Right? This is what we call al-ya'as. Al-ya'as means to despair and to give up and to, to lose all hope. And upon a Muslim is to combine between two things, which is to fear Allah, and secondly, it is to hope in Allah. So, on the one hand, you are optimistic, you hope for Allah's mercy, you hope for good, and on the other hand, you are not too confident in that you fear Allah, you fear the plan of Allah, you fear that which Allah has decreed. And so this allows us to remain on the straight path, because when a person, he commits a sin and he thinks that he will not be forgiven and he loses all hope, this now he's going in the path of those who worship Allah just out of fear only, like the Khawarij. And on the other hand, if a person commits a sin and he's not fearful, and he doesn't fear the consequences, and he's just hoping all the time, hoping Allah's mercy, this then is also detrimental and harmful to him. He will go in the other direction, right? Of those who believe that sin is not harmful and a person can continue, behaving like that. So we are in between these two, between not feeling secure, not feeling sure and safe, and on the other hand, not losing despair. So now there's an issue that the scholars discuss, which is how should a person combine between these two things, right? With respect to al-aman, wal-ya'as, and khawf, and raja, fear and hope, right? Fear and hope, because really what we're speaking of is fear and hope. How should a person combine between these things, and which one should he emphasize? Is it equal, or should he fear Allah more than he hopes, or should he hope in Allah more than he fears? Right? So in other words, should he fear Allah's punishment more than he hopes in Allah's mercy? Or should he hope in Allah's mercy more than his fear of his punishment? Right? When a person stands and he thinks of his sins, what should he be thinking? Should he be thinking, my hope is greater? Or should he be thinking, actually my fear is greater from Allah's punishment? Or should they be equal? What's the answer to this question? And so the scholars, they answer this question and they say that one group basically said that the fear should be greater, another group said that the hope should be greater. But both of these are wrong, because this is just a generalized answer. The correct answer is to make detail, to make tafsil. And that which is correct is that if you look at every person, he will be in one of three situations. Either he's in a situation where he's healthy, fit, sound, or he's in a situation where he's ill, diseased, and not in a good state. And the third one is where he is at the point of death. Right? These are three situations every person is in, can be in. Right? Goodness, health, disease, and at the point of death. And so depending on which situation you are in, then it will determine which of these two you should emphasize over the other, or whether they should be equal. So, as for the first situation, when you are in a situation of sihha, which is health and soundness and so on and so forth, in that situation, the fear should be more. You should fear Allah more than the hope. Right? So the sins, and you should not feel secure, you should not feel, that the plot of Allah, the plan of Allah, should, overwhelm you. And so this then leads you to withhold from sins. And you're not then deceived by just the fact that you are healthy and fit and whatever else, and, that will force you to, or that will lead you to go towards sins. Right? So you fear the punishment of Allah, you fear the plan of Allah, and you fear more than you hope, because then this will keep you away from sins. And generally people, when they're healthy and fit, there's no sickness, there's no illness, people generally are ungrateful, they fall into sin, they neglect the obligations, and they don't appreciate the health that they have. This is generally how people are in the situation of health and soundness and fitness. They are prone to, be ungrateful and commit sins. So in that situation, the fear should be more. So it makes a person withhold from these types of sins. The second situation is a situation of illness and disease. And in this situation, a person should emphasize the hope, and it should be more than his fear, because if a person was to emphasize the fear, then he will not expect from Allah Azza wa Jal that which is a cure for his disease and for his sins and so on and so forth. And that's why in the hadith, the Messenger of Allah he said, قال الله تعالى in a hadith Qudsi, أنا عند ظن عبدي بي فليظن بي ما شاء. I am as my servant, as he anticipates or as he thinks of me. So let him think of me with what he wills. In other words, if you are someone who's going to think, you think that Allah's not going to forgive him, and you have this presumption, you shouldn't have that. This is what the message is. You shouldn't have that. You should have the presumption that Allah is going to be merciful to me, have mercy upon me, and have hope, and that will then lead you to forgiveness and seeking forgiveness, and Allah will be like that towards you. Yeah, right? So how you are, that's how. So in other words, what the hadith is saying, that a person should anticipate hope from Allah and not exaggerate in terms of the fear in that situation, in the situation of illness and disease and so on and so forth. But obviously a servant, he varies between these, in his life. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. So in each situation, it's either the khawf which is greater, or it's the raja which is greater. And the third situation, the last situation, is that point of death. At the point of death, the person, he should equate between the two. And the evidence for this is that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to a man, and he was ill, and he said to him, he said, how would you find yourself? How would you find yourself? And the man said, he said, akhsha dhunubi wa arju rahmata rabbi. He said, I fear for my sins, and I hope in the mercy of my Lord. So in response to this, the Messenger of Allah, he said, لا يجتمعان في قلب عبد في مثل هذا إلا أنجاه الله من النار. He said, the likes of this does not come together in the heart of any servant except that Allah saves him from the fire. Saves him from the fire. So this now is clear evidence here that in this situation a person should equate between khawf, between fear, and between hope, and make them equal. So this brings us to the last and final point, and with that we'll conclude